Greetings and welcome to Season 2 of CHAP's Chapcast. I am Jennifer Kennedy and the lead for quality at CHAP. Today I'm talking with Stephanie Johnston from Transcend Strategy Group about a really, really hot topic, staff recruitment and retention. So welcome, Stephanie. And, just to get the ball rolling, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your organization?
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm so honored to be on the Chapcast today. A big fan of listened to every single episode you guys have put out and proudly recommend it to people in my network. So I'm honored to be with you today. Transcend Strategy Group, we are a 20-year-old firm that exclusively works with home care organizations. We're a growth strategy firm working with these organizations and helping them to diagnose and address the problems that they face, particularly associated with recruitment, retention, patient acquisition, and patient satisfaction. So the work we do prioritizes those two audiences of patients and employees. And we've been working in the space for 20 years. We've got more than 20 years worth of research that we've done in the area on what people struggle with, what they need. And we have a great body to build from in success models to help organizations solve these problems.
That is so important. We are in an unprecedented time, I think, in the healthcare space where staffing, recruitment, retention, all of that is like in the top 3 priorities of an organization. And every week I get home care news and hospice news, or every day really, into my email box. And never a day goes by where you don't see something about staffing in both of those newsletters. So, what is our current state? What are you seeing out there when you're working with organizations?
Yeah, Jennifer, it's interesting because while I don't have a clinical background, I describe myself as more of like a clinical supporter. Most of my family, if not all my family, is in healthcare in some capacity. And the university that I went to,
right? You're honorary. Right?
Well, I feel like I should have gotten a minor in college because my roommate and all my friends were RN, BSN majors. In fact, our outgoing message in college every year had a clinical theme associated. When my best friend and my roommate took A&P, anatomy and physiology classes, we recorded an entire outgoing voicemail message that was all about the muscles and bones required to return your call.
I love it.
Like we were talking about our phalanges and how we were going to pick our phalanges and to pick up the telecommunicatory unit and dial your number. And it was a lot of fun. So it's kind of been in my blood, but my background is more in business and in marketing and in consulting. So when I as that long-term oldest daughter that would show up at the doctor's office with the big binder, and the entire history of everything that my family member had ever done, when I'd show up to the doctor's office like that. And that was, I was a 20-year-old. I remember my first hospice experience. I was in my 20s, just
wow.
a young pup and not knowing what to experience. And I saw all these different inconsistent experiences, but the consistent thing that's always remained in home care and hospice and palliative care and home health and private duty has been the passion of the workforce. This is like the Marines. This is the few and the proud who do this work. And they show up every day with a passion for their patients. They show up for a passion for the impact that they can have. That has not changed in the current state. What has changed is the expectations have dialed up as the same workforce is serving a larger patient population with more acuity issues. We're spreading people thinner. Add to that a global pandemic,
right,
and the challenges that came into play associated with patient care. And we're seeing an increase in burnout that's fueling an increase in desires to leave the industry. In 2022, surveys showed that about 35% of healthcare workers, nursing workforce in particular, were thinking about leaving their careers. That number has increased significantly. Most recent survey that we did showed that over 50% of the nursing workforce expect to leave their jobs within the next 12 months because of burnout. Other longer range.
So let me ask you
Oh,
this.
sorry.
So with that nursing survey, did you ask what the age of the nurse was? Because I'm interested to know, was it
Yes.
younger nurses? Was it older nurses? Or was it sort of spread across the age continuum? What did you see there?
Great question, Jennifer. We're seeing burnout show up earlier in nurse tenure
Wow.
than ever before. The highest cases of burnout were among nurses in their first 5 years
Mm-hmm.
of employment. And that's looking across the entire healthcare sector. When we look at home care, it's no surprise that burnout was highest among those that were working. Or, sorry, let me step back. When we look across senior care, those who are working with long-term patients with chronic and serious health conditions, ugh, easier said than done. When we look across the industry at folks that are helping patients that are dealing with serious or long-term health issues, burnout was highest among those working in long-term care communities. Again, not a surprise given the pandemic that we're walking through, but across all environments, though, that first 5 years was the space at which we saw burnout.
That's really
at its highest level.
to me. I would have thought, I would have thought that maybe it was nurses that were sort of more into their career, maybe a little more seasoned, maybe towards the end of their career. So the first 5 years is an interesting statistic to me as a longtime nurse. But we're not.
I think we need.
I was just going to say, but we're not restricted to nurses, though, right? When we're looking at people who are getting burned out and want to leave.
Right. Yeah, I saw a statistic recently that 45% of doctors, of physicians, are saying that they're burned out as well. So the healthcare industry overall is a segment that's experiencing tremendous burnout. When we talk to people about solutions for burnout, when the number one response that comes back is a desire for increased flexibility. This is the number one benefit of care in the home, of providing care in the home, is the ability to have flexibility, to be an entrepreneur of your own career. Mm-hmm. So this is a gorgeous time right now to see a challenge as an opportunity for the home care sector to step up and build themselves as employers of choice. We have these gorgeous dynamics happening right now. If you choose to look at them as positive, like I said, as what we have to offer is coveted and sought after, we have very low visibility among the nursing workforce, especially among those who are in hospitals and health systems. Those nurses that work in that environment consistently cite the lowest volume of visibility and understanding of home care careers. So there's a huge opportunity for them to understand what home care has to offer. There's a desire for respite, and there's the health systems are struggling right now because of the overhead commitments that they've made. Right. They're financially struggling right now, and we're seeing more and more health systems throw up the white flag, reduce staff, et cetera. So it's a great time for home care providers to be putting themselves forward as employers of choice in their communities, because what we have to offer is what people want and need right now for their careers.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Flexibility, I think, is the number one thing that people want. I have a friend who works in, she's a part of a larger healthcare system, and not unlike other places, they're having a lot of recruitment and retention issues, particularly with nurses, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, one thing that they started doing, which I thought was really interesting and cool, is that they formed it within their system, their own sort of like staffing pool. So let's say that, I'm a nurse and I can work somewhere in the hospital that fits my skill set, but then I can also come out to home care and split some time there. So I'm not constantly, mm-hmm. Day after day in one environment. I'm getting sort of a mix of different nursing experiences. And it's early days, but she's saying they're having some success there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this concept of workforce pools. When we talk about solutions to burnout and how do organizations become employers of choice, leveraging their technology and their process is one component, but there's also the right role and the right work for the right person at the right time.
Yes.
And those resource pools allow people to have that flexibility and have that agility to, work with the right patient, doing the right kind of work at the right time. Often we find, and this is something that's continuing to be optimized, is that we're using RNs to the highest level of their licensure. We're using LPNs to the highest level of licensure, et cetera. It's more than that. That's just the start of the conversation. There's so much more to it than that. But these resource pools have a tremendous amount of potential, not only to help individuals, but also to build team, build community, which is what the nursing workforce leaving the healthcare system, leaving the hospital system, what they need to know that home care can provide. They're afraid. Our research shows that they're afraid that they're going to be going into the home. They're going to basically be abandoned in a home. They're not going to be safe. They're not going to be supported, and they're not going to be connected. They think they're going to be stuck in somebody's home doing charting all day. And so being able to show the power of the community behind you and building community in an employee workforce, even in a remote workforce, is totally possible with some intention and some effort associated with it. And pooling strategies, leveraging your labor pool strategies, whether that's regionally or across your organization, if you're a large scale provider and you've got multi-sites that you can leverage, it's such a great opportunity to demonstrate the power of your, employee value proposition. This is why people belong as a member of this organization, as a part of our organization, is because of these benefits and how we think.
Absolutely. I'm really intrigued by that idea. So I imagine you're doing that strategy plus maybe some other things with organizations right now. So what kinds of things are you're helping them with in this really unprecedented time?
Yeah, it starts with sort of diagnosing the situation and diagnosing the market. This is not a one size fits all solution. Doing this work, so we usually take a look at,
isn't it?
Right. It really is. It really is. So we do start by, just like you would with a patient situation, you diagnose current statistics. Like, let's take a look, what's their blood pressure, what's their pulse ox, what's their lung function, what are all these aspects of the health of the patient. We look at the same thing with the health of an organization, and then we look at the health of the organization, but we also look at the market conditions in which they play. So what's the competitive landscape? What's the volume of people that they could actually employ who are right fits for their organization? So looking at the capacity, the market capacity for their need. And then we build out, this customized plan for what are the things that you should prioritize working on in what order. And often one of the areas that we see most consistently is that there's very little visibility to that organization. You are not findable as a provider. You are not known as a provider. You don't even have a meaningful reputation among the nursing workforce.
Wow.
And we know reputation really matters among the nursing workforce. You're viewed kind of monolithically, like, oh, you're a home care provider, therefore you must be, a mom and pop. You must be very, very small and have very little infrastructure to support me. So often what we find is there's just a really big lack of understanding and lack of visibility. And we do a lot of work with providers in that space to help them boost their profile. And we also help them leverage technology and process improvement to streamline the processes. Sometimes it's just a matter of, there's a client that we work with where we help them trim their intake questionnaire for prospective employees from over 30 questions down to about 14, I think is where we landed. And they saw completion rates triple for the people who are actually going through the process.
Who wants to answer 30 questions, right?
Right. Yeah, so completion rates tripled, but also the quality of the people who are actually completing the process doubled. So they saw a significant increase in the quality of right fit applicants who were going through the process. That means they're able to hire the right fit people faster. And that's a pretty significant impact for patient quality, because you don't have patients waiting for clinicians. It's great for culture because it demonstrates a commitment to the issue and not just we're working on it. on it, where a lot
Right.
of people get stuck. And it has a financial impact too. You're not spending as much time and money on recruiters or Indeed posts or all this because your processes are agile. And we believe that the process, that first set of communications that somebody experiences with you, sets the tone. The process is a sample of what it's like to be part of our organization.
Well,
And so
yeah,
we've got to make sure that that is a really
that's a
efficient
great
process.
point, because if you see organized, structured, thoughtful processes right from the get-go, it is a reflection of the organization overall. You know what,
Yeah.
Stephanie, it seems to me that things move really quickly nowadays, that you might have somebody who's interested, takes a look at your organization, but you've got to move way quicker than you did, like say even 5 years ago, to keep that applicant engaged. And if that's somebody you really want, you've got to move like at lightning speed. Is that fair to say?
That is true across the board, Jennifer, for providers in every way. Quite frankly,
Hmm.
whether you're working with Medicare Advantage payers, the responsiveness, to be able to meet their needs and address their questions. When you're dealing with patients and families, it used to be that 24 hours was an
Yeah.
acceptable time frame to get back to somebody. Now we're talking 3 hours or less. If you can get back to a patient in 3 hours or less and
Right.
get them scheduled and get them. So we're seeing just shorter timeframes across the board. And that does tie into what prospective employees expect in terms of responsiveness: efficient, quick, and that there's compassion and caring in that approach as well. You treat me like a human being, not like a
Yep.
robot. In the way that you do those things. So making sure that organizations have their values baked in that process from the get-go, and then that carries through. And often we find organizations in the retention space that we're working with organizations on culturally mindful or values-driven processes. Sometimes it's how you're doing employee development, how you're handling town hall communications. It could be a variety of means, but that retention component, what we see in the research, is just how important it is to demonstrate that you are working to make your tools and processes patient and employee centric, and that your leadership is trustworthy. And trustworthy leadership has a direct correlation to quality of communication. In every employee engagement survey we've worked on with organizations, we see this correlation come back, that if I am actively and consistently communicating through multiple means with my workforce, they're more likely to think that I'm a trustworthy leader.
Well, and they're more likely to stay, since we're talking about retention now. You know,
Yeah.
I've read and I've heard that sometimes money isn't always the main idea or lure, or whatever you want to call it, of why people stay at an organization. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're using their skill sets to their optimum level. And overall, I think they want to feel part of something, and I don't know. There are many people out there who are probably listening that may identify with, hey, I might have left a job because I didn't feel valued, or I didn't have a voice, or, what all of those other things are. So when you talk about retention, I love the idea that you're talking about, leadership, showing caring. What else can you talk about when we're wanting to keep those good people in the fold, if you will?
Yeah. So when we think about retention, there's sort of four priorities that we see for the industry. Some are ones that everybody or that the industry collective is working on. Number one, getting more nurses. We know that we're going to need about 3.5 million nurses by 2030. So as an industry, we got to be graduating, recruiting, attracting, educating that nursing workforce that's coming out about the opportunities for them in home care. We've got to be optimizing roles and work so that we've got people doing the right work at the right licensure level, and we're leveraging our pools of talent, as we talked about before, leveraging our pools of talent and creating opportunities for people to do meaningful work that's valuable to them. We've got to be leveraging technology and process to alleviate those pain points. We know EMRs leaders, we know process elements, they're not set it and forget it. Good copy discipline, as you very well
Yes.
know, is about continuously improving process and optimizing and simplifying technology. Often we see people just that process and technology becomes like a Christmas tree. We just hang more and more and more and more and more things,
Right.
into the process that just adds time and intensity. And then the fourth piece, which is really the umbrella for all this conversation we're having right now, is about strengthening your role as an employer of choice, and having a strong reputation in the community, being visible with consistency and discipline for prospective patients and families, as well as prospective employees. That piece alone right there, organizations that we've worked with have had a significant reduction in turnover and a significant increase in their speed to fill open positions because they've increased their visibility as an organization. One organization we work with cut their turnover rate to the low teens.
Wow.
As a result of increasing their visibility. And you would think, if I'm talking to the external world, how does that benefit my internal team? Well, they want to see you advocating for them and advocating for the work that they do. That instills pride, right?
Right,
I'm
right.
proud of the work that I do. And so are you in the face that you're putting out there to the world. And that pride makes people feel like they're connected to something bigger than themselves. So working on building their reputation, optimizing their internal processes and tools, addressing compensation and making sure you're being market relevant,
Right.
demonstrating flexibility in your practices and building trustworthy leadership are all key areas for organizations to work on.
These are all really important. And I know when I ask this next question, you're going to have the answer at the ready is, how we tie all of this to, everyday quality of patient and family care that has to happen with every patient, every family, every touch that a healthcare provider has with them.
Great question. This topic is something I'm particularly passionate about because of my background as a family caregiver. I'm a family caregiver right now. My dad has been in all stages of healthcare these days, and so this is a space that I live in and feel passionate about as an advocate for others that are going through the same space. But it does really start with reputation. Patients and families, employees want to be proud of the organization that's providing care for them. And there's a correlation between reputation and perceived quality. It sets you off on the right foot. Having a great reputation sets you off on the right foot to have an expectation or a bias that there's going to be really great care provided. Right. The way you treat your employees is picked up on by the patient and family. They sense it. They know it when the nurse is coming into the home to provide care, whether they're coming in with a weight on their shoulders of all the other patients and all the other documentation they have to do. I distinctly remember my first hospice experience and somebody coming into the home and you could just like see the heaviness in their body.
Yeah.
And I asked him, what was going on? What's going on? And you're always so happy. He's like, I know when I leave your house that I'm going to have 6 hours of documentation ahead of me, and I'm just not looking forward to it. I'd rather just be taking care of patients and doing what I'm trained to do. And I don't look forward to doing that documentation later. And they carry that weight physically. We can't help it. We carry the weight of what we're working on or the joy of what we're working on into the home. So people pick up on that. And how you support people in carrying that burden sends a big signal to the employee.
It does, yeah.
Am I expecting you just to carry it, or are we in this together?
Right. Yeah, that's, I had a healthcare, home care experience a few years ago. And, as soon as they learned I was a nurse, it seemed like the person that was coming to see me, who was another nurse, sort of just like let her guard down. Right. And it just said, same kind of thing. I've got, 6 more patients to see after you. And I thought, thanks for confiding in me, but still, you look stressed and you probably shouldn't be telling me that. Right. So, I think you're right. I think an organization that really holds their staff in their hands, supports them, values them, it does, filter through to that patient and family experience. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. And there's this principle that we use a lot in the sales space, which is air cover and ground cover. Do it the other way around. Air cover and ground cover. That organizations need when you are building census, when you're being visible to patients and families, and the same holds true when you're building your workforce. You have to have this force on the ground that's accessible to the prospective patient and prospective family. And often those are liaisons that are in the hospital, right? Or liaisons in long-term care. And then you have the air cover, which is your reputation, your brand, your website, your advertising, those kinds of accessible items. My thought is that we need to bring more of that same air cover and ground cover into the patient experience, because how much pressure would that take off of our caregivers if they felt more supported in patient communication at the highest level? If there was this steady communication, and in particular, this is around patient education, the area that we know that is lowest scored, or one of the areas that tends to be lowest scored on family satisfaction surveys, pain and symptom management, right? And communication training for family, the two big areas that are consistently low in those surveys. There's an opportunity there for providers to provide their clinicians with some air cover. And one of my colleagues, Stan Massey, talks a lot about building out employee resources and caregiver resources, family caregiver resources to help them. That's just such a fantastic untapped opportunity for providers to help their clinicians.
That's such a great and interesting perspective. I don't know that I thought of it quite in that way before, but really, really cool. You've got a lot of cool things going on there.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, we're really excited about this work and really feel like we're doing the work. We really want to do work that's meaningful and important and supportive of this industry. We're not clinicians. We are clinical supporters, and we want to do all that we can to advocate for availability and accessibility of highest quality care wherever the patient wants that care. That's the mission that Transcend has.
Exactly. And if you're helping to build a better clinical workforce, that is going to trickle down to the care of the patient, quality of life of the patient, and overall experience. So thank you for doing that. And I wanted to also thank you for joining the podcast today. I've learned a lot of things. I'm taking away a lot of things. And thank you for sharing all this important work that you're doing. Do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners today, Stephanie?
I would just thank your listeners, not only for spending time with us today, but for the work that they do. This is hard and tiring work, and we're going through a time of unprecedented change, and it requires endurance, but it also requires community. And we are part of a larger community that wants to support each other. That's one of my favorite things about this industry. This is one of my favorite things about CHAP is you all are community builders. And to face the challenges that we have ahead as an industry, we're going to need to rely on each other. We're going to need each other's support.
Absolutely. It's all about partnership. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah.
The CHAP team and I.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, the CHAP team and I thank you, Stephanie, for joining the podcast, and thank all of you out there listening for taking time out of your day to plug into the podcast. Hopefully, as I have, you are taking away some pearls of wisdom today about our conversation with Stephanie. So stay safe and well out there, and thanks for all you do.